The Oilers are 15 games into the regular season, carrying an 8-7 record so far. We're also 3/4 of the way through a 4-game road trip that saw the Oilers lose in Washington, come back and have a really big character win in Tampa Bay, and then suffer a 7-2 loss last night in Carolina. This is another edition of The Panel presented by Sportsnet. I'm Baillie Sheets, filling in for Tony Brar while he's on a much-deserved vacation, joined, of course, by Jack Michaels and Bob Stauffer. And further down the beach, we are also joined by Sportsnet's Gene Principe, but he's not joining us on the panel. He's just getting some sun in.
Well, of course he would. And first of all, Bailey, I'm not sure how well-deserved the vacation is for Brar. But in any event, I know you're trying to just be nice to one of our colleagues. You're right. It's, the 15-game point, it's a line of demarcation to some degree because the Oilers, will have a practice today and then gear up for the final game of what has been a challenging road trip, for the second consecutive road trip. 3 games in 4 nights, to start it. And I think sometimes that third game in 4 nights is actually more difficult than the second of a back-to-back, especially when the opposition is a top-caliber club like the Carolina Hurricanes. I think Edmonton has to park that game, find a way to extract 2 points on Saturday, and then get home, rest, and regroup with a more leisurely week of 2 games at home at Rogers Place. But they're a little banged up right now, Bob, and I think you'd concur that it's about time a few other people start supplementing the club at both ends of the ice.
Yeah, Jack, a couple things. I mean, I sit there and when you look at the Edmonton Oilers, the game against Carolina, I saw a Hurricanes team that hadn't scored, for a while, and I think they were more desperate. And it's funny. I wondered what would have happened if Edmonton could have got out of that period scoreless just because of the way Carolina was struggling a little bit offensively. But I thought they played with greater desperation with Edmonton. And the Oilers,
even at the end of the second, 3-1 as compared to 4-1.
Huge difference.
Big difference.
You give up goals in the final minute of a period, and it puts you in a tough spot. Edmonton's at 8-7. The Oilers, no excuses, but they've played a tougher schedule than they started, back in 1920 or again last year. So they've played a difficult schedule. They're giving up too many goals against. It's that simple. It's the first thing the coaches will talk about. And yes, they've got a couple pretty significant, and it's now become a couple. It's not one significant absence. Obviously, we all know the situation with Evander Kane. We're all thankful that he's going to be okay, but he's going to be a huge loss for the next 3 to 4 months with the wrist injury. But now Kailer Yamamoto's gone back home too. And it's not like he's trying to gut through a road trip here. The fact that he's gone home becomes a little bit concerning, especially when you factor in the headshot that he took last year, that blindside hit the playoffs by Gabriel Landeskog. He suffered an upper body tweak in the preseason, got punched in the head in a melee against Tampa Bay that went unpenalized. So I'm a little bit nervous because that's 2 of Edmonton's top 6 players. So they are going to need to do this as a team together, but the priority has to be in getting the goals against down.
And as you look at the Oilers' goaltending tandem, we saw Jack Campbell play probably his best game of the season against Tampa Bay, and then he played again last night versus Carolina, and of course, not all his fault, but 7 goals were scored. Stuart Skinner has had some strong starts as well, but he did play in Washington and let in 6 goals against. Where do you kind of see this tandem going as the season progresses here?
Well, first of all, when it comes to Jack Campbell, my expectation is that he's going to get better as the season goes on. There's really no way to go up or nowhere to go but up. I mean, he'd be the first to tell you that he needs to be better. I don't think Jack should take the degree of ownership at times he's taken after loss. Like, I look at goals against, and I think that's a team statistic. Now, granted, the save percentage has to get better. I think there's some confidence in Skinner with where he's going, but I think Stuart would tell you he needed to, he might want 1 or 2 back against, 1 for sure against Washington, albeit 4 on the power play here. Again, team stat for me in goals against, and it's not just a reflection on the defense or the goaltenders. It's also the support that they're getting back from the forwards. And one of the things Jay Woodcroft did last year when he took over was improve the Oilers' work back to the puck. And to a man, I think the Oilers players will tell you they can improve their work back to the puck, Bailey.
And it's kind of a full circle moment being here in Fort Lauderdale where Connor McDavid was drafted. There's an iconic video of Bob on this exact beach.
Iconic. I don't know about that.
Yeah, I know. I gotta hike up the pants a little bit if he's gonna go wading.
But Connor McDavid this season has scored now 15 goals in 15 games. It feels like he's scoring a highlight reel goal in almost every game. I mean, the goal last night against Carolina, had it been scored by any other player, would have been a big news story. But for him, it's feeling commonplace. I mean, he's passed 500 career NHL games now. Where do you kind of see the ceiling for him this season and beyond? I can't fathom it.
I think the same thing I see every season with Connor McDavid. I'm not sure there is a ceiling. You know, a couple of weeks ago on the Sportsnet panel, Cassie Campbell-Pascal said Connor McDavid is going to score 80 goals, and I kind of chuckled a little bit. And now I'm starting to wonder whether she might be onto something. I mean, he's off to a tremendous start. I think indicative of what Bob was talking about in terms of the schedule and the accumulation of games, I thought it was indicative where the team didn't seem to have much juice. In fact, that goal that Connor McDavid scored against Carolina turned out to be the last shot on goal the Oilers recorded that night. They just didn't have enough pushback. And again, I think part of it is that goal cut it to 4-2 instead of 3-2, and that's where the late goals against come into play. And Bob's right. I mean, 24 goals against in the last 5 games. To be honest with you, when I look at that, Edmonton's lucky to win one of those. So it's got to be more than Connor McDavid. It's got to be more than Leon Draisaitl, who, oh, by the way, has quietly put up a 10-game point streak and is having a tremendous season. When you have guys like Kane and Yamamoto out, and maybe for an extended stretch of time, in both cases now, you've got to have some supplemental scoring. You've got to have the team as a collective find a way to contribute more. And I'm going to go to the back end as well. You know, there are players that contributed on the back end seismically last year that, you know, their point totals are not what they'd like to be. I know Evan Bouchard wants to get going. I know Barrie and Nurse feel like they have to supplement the offense a little bit, and they should. It's not just the depth forwards. They've got to get some scoring from the back end, and the timeliness of saves, I think, come into play as much as the team save percentage. Getting that save in the final 30 seconds of a period, as Bob noted.
You know, it's funny, Bailey, you mentioned Connor, and we sit there and watch McDavid, and there's a term at the absolute height of his powers.
We don't know what that is.
We don't know what that is.
I'm
I'm going to circle back, Jack. You went out with us with Chris Knobloch here in town. He was coaching Erie that year. That was Connor's draft year.
He was wearing your golf shirt.
He'd had a tough travel day, so suddenly he was out in an Oilers orange golf shirt. But I remember talking to Chris, and he looked at us and he said, "Guys, 5 or 6 years in, you're going to be going, I've never seen him make that play or do that before, because that's how this guy is driven and wired." We're watching something special. We know we're watching something special, but we've learned not to limit, because he is literally capable of doing things that nobody else on the planet can do right now. So that's exciting. And I guess we all know the Oilers need a couple more stops. They need Jack Campbell to get enough form here. He'd be the first to tell you he needs to be better. We all know, like, the defense know that they can elevate the level of their performance. The forwards know they can support back to the puck and work better. But at the end of the day, Edmonton's got a puncher's chance in every game, because they got 2 guys, a tandem, and they're not playing together a lot. I know they went to them together last night for the back half of that game, but they haven't played. Like in the 5-game winning streak, they only played 2 minutes and 12 seconds together, 5-on-5. Because they've got Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl, not to disrespect the rest of the team, but just the reality of the situation is they have a chance to win every night. And that's always the wild card in any discussion about the Edmonton Oilers.
Connor McDavid and Leon Draisaitl have combined for 59 points in 15 games, which is just outstanding. I think we do owe it to the people of Edmonton to enjoy some time on the beach with our buddy Gene, but this is my first and probably my last panel presented by Sportsnet.
Are you kidding?
It might be. We could have a whole panel on that, but I think before we leave, one of my favorite parts of traveling with the team, I'm quite new to it, has been hearing stories from both of you. You've had lengthy, amazing careers covering the team. You can take this however you want, but I'd like to know what the craziest thing that has happened to you while on the road with the team has been. It could be on the ice, it could be on the beach.
Bailey, that'll be a panel that'll be never aired.
Bob, what about you?
I'm going to write a book. It's going to be called All the Stuff I Knew That I Couldn't Say, Baillie, and that's when that's going to appear.
I'm sure it'll be a New York Times bestseller. This has been another panel presented by Sportsnet. Thank you both for your time.